showed it in the first episode. I found the first sketch I ever did, and it was more than 20 years ago when I was just coming up with these kind of like exploitation characters, and I was just kind of doodling and workshopping. I think I might even have it here. If you give me a second.
Recording and waiting for the cloud. We have the cloud. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of The Making of Turbo Pit Fighter, the
We're
comic
back.
that will come to its realization as a graphic novel, trade paperback. We are the Turbo Knots. I am
Turbo
Kurt
Knots.
Brugel.
I'm
The inker of this comic. And you are?
I am Jake Jacobs, the penciler and the script writer and chief cook and bottle washer. Uh, but uh, but we are a team. This is a team
Yes, we
effort,
are.
and
Yes, we
and
are.
and hooking back up with you has really got me going here. And
Yeah, yeah, yep, yep,
this is
yep.
gonna be a
Yeah, we're
great comic.
splitting up all the duties and getting this comic done in the modern age of how you make comic books. So we're talking about the process. We're actually right now making pages. I am still working on page 11 of issue 1. Jake, what are you on? Issue 2, page 5?
5, yeah,
5.
and
Okay.
yep. Here's a quick review of page 1 and page 2. There's these action sequences in this war-torn, post-apocalyptic landscape where there's a
There's our
couple of
girl
different themes.
Ambra.
Yeah, there's a couple of different
Frisky
themes
Ambra.
for ski. But there's radioactive currency. There's pit fights, and I was just wondering about it, like the technology of the day. Like, there's some technology, but there's not that much, and the RM, the military guys have guns, but like these freaker guys don't really have guns, and it's kind of hit or miss. I'm not sure, how we're going to handle it. Like these kind of like anarchistic outlaw biker, vehicle guys, the cars and bike, they have like lesser technology, and the RM has all the technology. So not only guns, but also drones and all the automated weapons, which we'll get into. But in the story, there's this ruling family that controls the army or the military, and there's a battle going on between them and their actual boots on the ground, and then there's all these other, like, side people, warlords, the hate breeders, and you know roving bands of vagabonds and killers, and then there's the pit fights, which is kind of like the one time where all of the factions, get together in the same place and they watch these pit battles. So it's kind of like a it's kind of like something that bonds the society, keeps the bonds of a society together that's all fallen apart. Uh, and so those are some of the themes, but it's basically a science fiction post-apocalyptic story where there's a very strong female, and she's a pit fighter, and she is endowed with strength and endurance and a constitution that most people don't have, because she is naturally resistant, genetically resistant to the radioactive death clouds that made everybody else, weaker, and so that's why she is able to do battle in the pit fights and win radioactive currency that fuels her vehicle, which is an old ice cream truck, and she's able to keep on moving down the road. And you know, there's going to be some characters that we still are figuring out, and there's going to be some sequences and some, you know, some flashbacks, some history and prehistory, um, that we're going to be covering. So this is it. This is Turbo Pit Fighter, and numbers one and two, and you know, ultimately a graphic novel. So
So a
we
thought
are,
I was having,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I jumped in there.
No, go ahead.
You want
No,
to,
you want to jump in.
a thought I was just having with the world and the difference between being a was a glower, right?
Uh-huh.
And then the normies who have the veins. It
Right. They
so
all have
you
veins in their
you
eyes.
you 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 actually answered my question in one phrase, but the other phrase is there was a nuclear devastation fallout to make an apocalyptic world where let's say the normal people who end up getting the veins, they end up becoming weaker as a human species, and the
Well,
glowers,
it's yeah, it's just relative. So the glowers are more enhanced, and you know, it's not that the other people are like walking around and they can't lift things. It's just they're
right?
normal. Right.
Okay,
Right. And the
yeah,
glowers
because I
are like the gladiators of the day.
right,
You
right.
know, they're
So they do
right.
they're experiencing um, and I have to just keep going back to the mutant power thing. I don't know why. It's just
Right.
the way.
Well, you know, so it's well, first of all, how did in the society get that way? So it turns
Yeah,
out the ruling class, the ruling family, is the one that released the radioactive death clouds in order to you know, wipe out the population and take control, and you know, wipe out some areas and not others. They call it geographical thinning, and and it just so happened that the formulation was such that, you know, one out of, let's say, you know, 200 people, or you know, one out of 100 or one out of 500 or some proportion of the people who just had this natural resistance where it didn't kill them, it made them stronger, right? And so
hmm
that's the glowers. So you know, Turbo grows up and she gets, you know, muscular and she's powerful, and you know, she's a survivor, and she's an example of the glower. And most of the most of the pit fighters will all be glowers, and they'll all have some gimmick. You know, like wrestlers have gimmicks. They'll all have
right.
some gimmick, you know, some identity or some kind of costume or whatever. Um, and yeah, you know, we're figuring it out as we go, but you know, these are some mature ideas, you know, since this has been kicking around for a good long while, and you know, I'm still working out the details. There might be some, you know, contradictions that we have to work through, right? Like I was always wondering, like, you know, how does the society, like, it's ripping each other apart, you know, people, it's like, you know, Mad Max landscape, everyone's like killing each other on sight and robbing each other, and you know, so how is it that they all get together for these pit battles, and you know, and it seems to be, you know, orderly and everything. So thinking about that, the answer was number one, yeah, we make that a theme. Like this is the only thing keeping this society, you know, from completely, you know, devolving. Number one, and number two, the pit fights all go south, right? There are all of these attempts to rig it, and there's all these sieges, and you know, there's all these problems, and so we're going to get into that. And so, you know, that made me really come up with some ideas for the duality that I want to try to infuse in this, where the, you know, the pit fights are going to be a metaphor for our current day elections. You know, supposedly the only thing you know, keeping us together, but you know, they're going south, right? They're getting out of hand. Everything's getting crazy. Everything's so divisive, and so, while it is supposedly the one, the glue to our, democratic society, it is also fraying. And so that's going to be reflected in these pit fights, in the story too. So, um, I do have, we're also, sorry, I'm flustered. We're also going to get into some of the technology where the radioactive currency is actually used as fuel in engines and weapons and heating and lighting and all that. They're basically these little pellets called peas, and you just drop them in, to things. And I think the way we're going to handle it is that there's going to be a couple of different types of them, and when you have one type next to another type, it causes it can cause like a catalyst reaction to bring out the energy. And so these will be kind of like advanced futuristic energy modes that we wind into the story. But we'll explain that as we go along. And then that's also going to be the flashback part where young Turbo, um, you know, um, is a key messenger in delivering a weapon that will change the whole society, because there's those two alternating types of radioactive pellet, that activate one another. So just a little of the thought process that he's going.
Yeah, because
And
you have six issues, at least in synopsis. And obviously, we have issue one's already complete. Pencils, I'm inking. You have a loose script that you have pushed
yeah,
together and based on the synopsis. And so then you're hammering the pages out. And and we're doing the thing that I think everybody who ends up getting into comic books loves the most, which is just creating stuff on the fly as you're making your book. So I'm constantly looking at what I'm doing as the anchor, and obviously we're finalizing the page, so it gets to the point where um, uh, I wouldn't say questions as much as it is like speculation. So I try to speculate, like, well, what if this character, what if this, or you had that, or would it align with this, or da 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 da. So I would be bringing some maybe bonus material uh, to the to the to the project.
yeah, no, and yeah, all input is welcome. And it's all food for thought. And it makes me go into different directions. And if any listener has some ideas, hey, what if they did this? What if they did that? How about if there was a character named Walpole? Like, go ahead and offer it. Sometimes it does bring us into details or Easter eggs, or other kind of things that we can put into it. But we're definitely happy to listen to it all, and and figure out if it's a good fit for the story. Um, I envision at some point in the future, working in collaboratives where people get on a call like this, or podcast or Zoom or whatever, and they are figuring out the plot of stories, working things out. And as they collaborate, doing it in like using technology. I mean, I'm sure people are doing this already, but maybe the difference is, we're putting it online as a podcast so people can see the process. And maybe years later, somebody will go back and say, "Oh, wow, that's when they figured this out. That's when they figured that out."
It is
So,
complex.
yeah, here I have some roughs, and I forgot that I had this, so I just drew out this whole
You
panel without realizing that I kind of worked out the composition to it.
you
It's
just found
similar.
that?
Yeah, I did this some at some point last week, and I noted here like a little note that I had more dialogue. This guy had a hook axe, so now I think I'm gonna change
Ah.
these things up. But that's what happens when your notes are all out of order. I was looking as you were talking about as you were talking about the synopsi. I was looking
Hmm.
for my notes on that, and it's somewhere in this little book about here's the last issue. But I had the bullet points of each issue worked out, and now I'm not seeing it. But um I we do have this thing where we're going back and forth between flashback and current day. So really, young Turbo becomes her own hero, her own protagonist. And maybe at some point in the future, they'll be just be like a young Turbo comic. But I'm wondering now where I did this. I lost my synopsis, and I think this is probably the wrong time to be looking for it. But I did kind of break down, the action that happens in each issue, and we are going to bring it all together. Oh, I know where it is. It's on the back of the script, which is probably right over here. Um, but no need to show that now. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I got a
So
question. I got a
yeah.
question.
Uh-huh.
What inspired you to just come up with Turbo as a character? Was it another comic character or a movie character or just a female actress or a wrestler? Was there something that
Yeah,
originated?
we showed it in the first episode. I found the first sketch I ever did, and it was more than 20 years ago when I was just coming up with these kind of like exploitation characters, and I was just kind of doodling and workshopping. I think I might even have it here. If you give me a second.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we and I came up with like, I did definitely want to make a strong female character. And when I say strong female character, I don't just mean strong-willed. I
Physical.
mean, yeah,
Oh,
muscular. Because you don't see too much of that. And we spoke about the controversy around the She-Hulk, which is being prepared
yeah.
right now, is that they felt like she was too muscular. She's supposed to be gigantic, but they felt like she was too muscular. Now, this is not it, but these are some early sketches. And like, what if there was a very, very just strong built, kind of like tattooed, um, you know, female character, and she has she she has a girlfriend. I mean, she's trying to win this girlfriend. Let me see. Is this where we have it? Yeah, I think this is. I have it handy. I'll show you the very first sketch that that launched it, and I was like, here's an early one. She has these metal
Wow.
gloves,
That's
and
awesome.
and the very first one, I had this like really shiny paper, and I had this pen that was really just like sitting on the paper, if you know what I mean. Oh, and
Uh-huh.
here it is right here it is right here. And this is the very first sketch, and the idea. And so it was in this robotic world, and just the name, Turbo Pit Fighter, and her entourage, the trophy girl, the man at arms, Mr. Ike, and then here's Smelvis, the bus driver. That's ridiculous. So that's now Gopher, the bus driver, who doesn't have a head. And then I wrote, look, goat thing. Like, what is going on here? So this was really loose workshopping, and this is the very first sketch. So this is what launched it. And then I said, wow, let me take this character and build a world around it. And then I started making these pages. This was what the process looked like. I did it on these like cheap newsprint pads, and I just kind of put it together. You might recognize some of these panels, right? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
have some action here. Um, so
But here's here
I
here. Um, is she just in design? Is she generic? Is she just something that you just literally just let the pen flow? And she kind of looks Asian a little bit here, and sometimes she looks more like She-Hulk, and it just sort of originates. But
um, it was so long ago I couldn't tell you
okay,
the exact genesis, but I know that I've always had a thing for strong females. Like, I also used to this was a while after, but when I started getting into playing music, I wrote a column called Garage Punk Garage for this newsletter, or this newsprint publication that comes out in Westchester, and it would talk about all the concerts and all the shows and all the clubs and all the gigs that everybody was having. And I wrote this column for more than a year, about like all the garage bands and all the punk bands and everything. And I wrote this article about the first girl bands, the first all girl bands, right? Starting with Goldie and the Gingerbreads back in 1963, and and then you get to the Runaways, and you get to some of these other bands, the Pandoras, and nowadays then you get to the Go Go's, the first number one album, all these firsts, all for females. So I've always been kind of like a fan. I have two daughters, and I always try to do this kind of like gender flipping thing, where even in my classes, like we have when I make my middle school kids like say, all right, we're all gonna design a superhero, and then I give them like this template that has this like blank body on it, and they have to come up with a power, and they have to come up with a name, and they have to do a big title, and then they have to design the uniform and everything. And then the next day I say, okay, now we have to do the same thing with a female superhero. And so everybody has to do a male and a female identifying, superhero. And one could be the good guy, one could be the bad guy, it doesn't matter. And um I have a great slideshow on the history of superheroines. And
oh wow,
you know yeah, and
is
I
it
I
a
actually
is it a PowerPoint presentation?
yeah, exactly. And I sell it on a website called Teachers Pay Teachers, because it does have an exhaustive history of all of the first female superheroes, and then all of the popular ones, and the first movie, and the first all the firsts. And a lot of people don't realize, before there was Wonder Woman, there was a couple of costumed superheroines, and Wonder Woman was the first one, clearly, that had her own book. But um, Hawk Girl, for example, was predated Wonder Woman, and there was a few more. And maybe we'll show it one day. Maybe we'll show some of those slides. Um, I've always just felt like females never got an even playing field, and so I wanted to make a character where it was just a strong female lead, centering the story, and she kicks ass, just like any guy. And and then she'll fall in love with this trophy girl, or there'll be this romantic interest that develops. Um, and and then we also have her younger character too in the flashback sequences. But I'm not 100% sure how I got there. Um, I think this was, just when we were first when I was first getting into comics, trying to come up with an original title.
Cool. You answered my question.
Yep. Uh, and yeah, so there's like the long planning of this, and then there's just like the panel by panel planning of this. Um, and as I'm doing this, the dialogue is kind of like filling in, and the artwork that you're doing doesn't have any word balloons. We gotta get you all the word balloons and figure out, where they all go. I have them. They're all done, right? They look like this.
Yeah.
I was even gonna I was gonna print them on sticky paper, and just like stick them down. But
Just cut it out.
yeah, maybe we'll just give it to you to do on a light box, and so it's like hand lettered. I think we spoke about that, or I could
Yeah,
do it.
yeah.
I don't know if you want to do it or if I do it, but um, some of these word balloons are gonna have to change from how they were originally done. Um,
Yeah.
like for example, the very first words that Trophy Girl says to this was a little salty back then when I was doing this stuff. The banter between Turbo and the Trophy Girl was kind of hostile at the beginning, right? Like they weren't getting along here. You can see like get away from me. Oh no, this is the very end right here. But when they first meet each other, the Trophy Girl wanted nothing to do with Turbo. She was just seeing her as another pit fighter that wanted to own her and have her way and everything. Um, right? She's like, get away from me, I don't go that way, and I don't know. We'll figure it out when we're not on camera, but yeah, there's a whole thing to that too.
Cool.
They're on the roof. What are we going to do? So yeah, this is the making of, and people are seeing a lot of the decisions that we have to make, right? It makes it
Yeah.
it it makes it even more incomprehensible to me how Stanley and Jack Kirby pulled everything together in those golden years. How did that all happen where they were making all those titles all at the same time? Fantastic Four, Thor, Iron Man, Hulk, Doctor Strange, Spider Man, X-Men, Avengers. It was just, you know, all at the same time. And, here we are trying to do one comic, and they were cranking this stuff out. I mean, maybe it's because, they were doing it all day, every day. Number one, and number two, they had to support themselves, so it was either that or they don't eat. but but
That's definitely it. But I think the other part of it is the Marvel method. So, because there's a really good book by a gal named Jennifer DeRoss who did a biography on Gardner F. Fox. And when he was at DC, Julie Schwartz,
right.
was the editor, and their thing was even down to both of them were into fencing. They would actually go and fence around their lunch break, and the entire time they were fencing, they were talking about the next Flash or Hawkman comic, um, and then the notes were
Wow.
then basically pepped up into a script. Excuse me, a script.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me, I gotta get a little water here.
Got a little tickle. Yeah, I
Yep, but
speaking.
it basically got thrown at the artist, who would then just embellish it all, and then it would
Right.
come back to Julian and Gardner, and they would then hammer down all the words in the balloons.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yeah, and so I would love that process, right? Somebody gives me a script, but it's really like underdeveloped, and then it's up to you to like, take that vision and just, bring it all the way through. But then, I'm
Well,
sure
it will
that I
be
mean,
fun. It'll be fun. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, I know that Stan and Jack had a different because remember I'm strictly a Marvel guy, right? So when I hear
Uh-huh.
DC and all that, I go ugh. But but you know the way they had it worked out was that they just knew each other and they had the same instincts, and um you know Jack would take these kind of like very very loose, the way I understand it, frameworks, and then he would really just knock out these pages, and then Stan would come in and finalize the
Yep.
dialogue, right? So it
Yep.
was like, he was looking at what Jack did and he said, "All right, well, we got to get this thing out, right? Right? We don't have time to mess around." So, he's just filling in stuff in, and it was a little bit, it was very formulaic, and a lot of it was very melodramatic, you know and it was basically, some people would even say hackneyed, um, but that was the workflow. That's what they needed to do.
Yeah, and it
So,
was it was once it was that same type of formula, which was you're just spitballing ideas on pieces of paper for 20 pages or 20 pages plus, and then somebody goes and visualizes the spitballing. Um, and then
right,
you come back, as let's say the writer, Stan Lee or Fox or whoever, you would then have to take what was um, illustrated based on an idea and then hammer it down into something that made sense. And obviously, the other part of it's going to be the continuity.
right, right, and that right. That's the maddening thing, because whatever they did in their haste to get, like, X-Men number 6 out ended up being like, the template for, the 20, 30 years later, 40 years
Yes,
later, oh no,
yes,
they said so and so. Like, I was looking at this X-Men reprint that I have. No, I have this weird book. It's like uh, a synopsis of every X-Men episode on one page, and it brings you through all the early Jack and Stanley um, X-Men, and explains who's introduced on each page, what happens. It was just like writing it all out, and they go through all these details, and it tells you the specific address of Charles Xavier's School for the Gifted in Scarsdale, New York, right? And it's an address that doesn't really exist, but it's like super super specific, and all of those things play later into, oh, we have to draw the street, and we have to draw this, you know it just when you're talking about the continuity, like, same thing's happening here. I'm drawing stuff, and I'm like, okay, what did the truck look like in the last panel of issue 1? Because I was just drawing a truck with some guys on it, and so I pull this up, and this is like, the pencils darkened in Photoshop, and it's like, okay, it's a specific kind of truck with these fat wheels and everything, and all these guys on it, and I didn't I remembered this thing wrong. I had like a whole cotillion of of people that were of these berserkers that are chasing them, and I didn't realize it was only one truck when I left off. So continuity is important, right? Unless you don't
yes,
care, some people don't care that much. It's like, I'm just gonna draw, and create, and I don't care if everything's exact. Like, his sword is on his left hand on one page, and then it's in his right hand on the very next page. Like, who cares, right? So some
right.
people are just, like that. But
Yeah, I
there's
don't
some
understand that
there's
aspect of
some.
comic book collecting. I don't where they're those are the complaints, is the oh you said this and that really should have meant, you're like, but at the same point, to have characters that are um, being a certain way, to just have them start acting a different way
Right.
is,
Yeah.
obviously, is heavily contradictive, and that's also a huge challenge too. I find for me is I have a hard time staying on point because of the ADD, and, and just having too many ideas is really where it comes down to. So I'll sometimes just try to smash them in together in the,
Hmm.
the whatever I'm working on right now, and that's usually where I end up giving up on something because it's just not, continuity wise, it's falling apart.
Well, having too many ideas is a good thing in my book. You
I agree.
just gotta get them in some kind of organization. Um, Not having enough ideas is tough, especially
Right.
if you're um. But
Hey, you want to
it.
check out this mini comic I got?
Sure. What do you got?
All right. So this came up on Instagram. Instagram seems to be, pushing a lot of independent black and white books out because all I seem to be liking and posting stuff about it. Um, this is called Feral Star. This is Zero. John Burkett is the creator. He
Hmm.
signed it. He just only made 50 of them. Um, but
Ooh.
I had I had seen the pages, um, but I was just super interested in seeing what he ended up producing. And I'll tell you this, I enjoy it a lot. I have some critique in the way of black spotting and certain areas like between these three characters differentiating from it. But the one thing is the lettering. He hand letters. He uses the Ames guide. I've
Hmm.
had a couple of little conversations, but it's tight. So as an overall book, it's tight, like book in the physical sense of the words here.
Yeah, he's
I
got.
also follow him. I follow him on his Substack. So it's and he also did this nice little ink drawing on the back there. So thanking me. But I wanted to check this out just for the craft. I'm reading the story, but at the same point, I'm seriously interested in the mini comic zine handmade craft of comic books.
Right.
That part of it. So
Yeah.
really excited about it.
The black and white is very dynamic. I can't see on this preview with too much detail, but you can tell the black and white interplay is really a plus. It's really
Hmm.
a feature.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and good strong style. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that looks like a
So
good one.
shout out. He sold out. He sold out, and I think in about a week or two. But he definitely has a Substack. And I don't know if anybody knows about it. I just set one up for the Gardner Francis Fox Library. Blogging, you subscribe though, and you'll get a newsletter. So you'll get the blog sent to you, much like an RSS, everything. But you, as a creator, have the ability to then turn it, have post paid posts. So you can actually start generating a little bit of an income on there. He's not doing that yet. I'm not doing that yet. Um, but I
So you,
do know they have an actual category for comic book writers. So it's pretty interesting. And if you're not familiar, Jake, I would definitely see how you would approach it for the just getting, let's say, the verbal, uh, you know, out there in storytelling.
right.
So.
Yeah, so that brings us to these other collab groups that I'm looking at, and let me
Yeah.
see if I can bring it up right here on Facebook. So there's something called artist and comic book artist and write. What is it? Let's like um find art comic book art. Wait, hold on. I'll tell you exactly. Here, connecting. It's called Connecting Comic Book Writers and Artists. 34,000 members.
Where
Um,
is this hosted? Where is this
this
hosted?
is on Facebook,
Oh, okay.
and it's the guidelines are pretty specific that if you're a writer and you're posting for an artist or vice versa, you need to explain whether this is going to be a partnership or if this is paid work or if this is like, share IP rights, like, what are your terms? Like they want
Yeah.
you to figure that out before you just go posting. Um, it's okay if you say, okay, we can negotiate, prices if this is going to be paid work, we're just work for hire. But there's all these different stuff on here and some styles of art. And the great thing is that you're bringing in all the international artists who work cheaper than American artists because they probably have less overhead,
Yeah, cost of
right?
living.
Yeah, I mean, if you live in Chicago, you're paying like, $2,000 a month rent. I think I just saw that the national average rent just went over $2,000 in the U.S. for the first
Yeah.
time. So here's the level of the art, right? You see all these different levels of art, and some of these people say, I only do pinups, and some of these people say, I do coloring, I do the whole bit. And so here's this one site that I'm on. um, and I haven't posted anything, but I am gearing up to post. I am a writer. I can write a lot quicker than I can draw, clearly. And I am looking for some other artists to get into some of these type of B movie good girl stories. I'm actually what I'm trying to do right now is just settle in on which one I want to post for, right? Or do I want to like post like a choice of three and see, who goes out there. But I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. But look at this great art. This is pro and semi-pro level stuff. You don't see too much here that's really, shoddy. And so I'm working up towards a post on there. There's some other Facebook groups too. One is like where you could just show off your stuff and, indie comic. Here, this is another one, indie comic writers and artists. Here's a group. This is a much smaller group. I think this is UK based and it's only a couple hundred members, but this is indie comic creators just sharing their wares and, I don't know. This is just like an affinity group or something. This one looks a little bit unprofessional, but they finished the product. Who am I to say, right? Um, and then the last one is Reddit, and I think I mentioned that to you before, but
Yeah, I'm on
let
there.
me. Yeah, you're on the Reddit
Yep.
collabs.
Yep.
Yeah, and that one's not too busy. So
Nah.
when something comes up, you see it and you catch up. But this Facebook one is very busy, and you see page rates. You see some like Brazilian artists. Good quality art, right? Like professional quality. Like definitely, I would be willing to work with somebody like that. And then they're like 60 a page. For pencils and inks, and then another 60 a page for colors. Those are some cut rates, compared to America. So, some more possibilities about, expanding our line if we get to that stage. But
Yeah.
of course, you always want to have your first, product in the can here.
Yep.
So, everything goes back to, let's get back to finishing. And even as I'm talking, getting all distracto and, bringing up these things.
Excited.
But we like to talk about what's going on in the biz, and some of these things are interesting because it's combining social media and combining technology, with kind of like this old-fashioned storytelling that we've been doing.
Yeah, it seems like the guys who get paid are the ones that do everything, basically
Right.
make you a comic book for about $100 a page. But the thing I have issue with is they ultimately have a very generic feel to them. The look is still comic book. It's tight and so on and so forth. But from page to page, um, they just
Yeah,
I
that
have a couple people saved that I would like to reach out to and maybe ink a page of theirs before they go to color, just to just to see what would happen when somebody does something digitally, in a three-dimensional like a
yeah.
SketchUp form, and then have someone like me put the hand traditional touch inking wise down on it. So,
Yeah,
but
that guy that you just showed me had a really good black and white, balanced, dynamic style, and I get the complaint, like, is that the average comic book person is just doing, kind of like the foreground figures, and everything else is secondary, so that you have a lot of pages where it's very sparse, or you
yeah,
have a lot of pages where the background is just an afterthought. And I think the background should be integrated. The environment should be integrated into the storytelling in the
oh,
first place. And that means like artists, you got to do this. You got to do like a pre before you do your thing. I mean, it helps me. I'm not always doing it here, but it helps you because like, look at this. Like, I just did this, like this, and this character's a little small. I like this composition better, where like he's a lot farther up, and he's like in your face. um in fact, I think I'm gonna just erase this guy because it's just like
I've been
he
waiting for
he
you.
he's okay, but he's not like it's not the best, so you
He's
always want
not
to put your
selling
best
it,
foot forward.
Jake. He's not
Right.
selling it. He's not
Right.
selling that panel.
I'm just taking him out here, and then we're gonna make him a lot closer up, like in your face. It's got a feeling. So as a creator, you you have these different, like, different times that you look at your work, right? You might like do a little sketch like this, and then you come back later and you see it in a new light. Maybe you've had a drink, or maybe something else. And you're just like, you see it, you see it in a different way, and you want to kind of collect all the best ways that you're presenting your work, and then and go with that, even if it takes a lot more work. They say Stan Lee was famous for rejecting covers, and having artists do it all over. Sometimes he would do two or three or four covers before he would say, okay, that's the one we're going to use. you know and nothing goes to waste in the end. The artists have the original art, or they could use that as a pin up or whatever. But Stan was, because the cover is everything in those days. The cover was just like what sets you apart, on the rack. And here, look, I'm even going to pop out of the panel. I'm going to do a whole class on this with my kids one day, about popping panels. Um, Popping panels, yeah.
Popping
And
panels.
you're right. That's when things are really in your face.
Popping
And
panels with Uncle Jake.
yeah, so I'm all for it. If you do it once and then you do it again, it's gonna be twice as good. As your first
Yeah.
draft. And that's a secret that I tell students. How can I get? They always say, how can I get to draw as good as you? I'm like, well, I don't know. It's practice, and
Draw every day,
and
all
looking
day
at
long.
yeah, draw every day and look at really good artists. But probably the most valuable thing I can tell you is If you have it done and you think you can do better a second time, do it again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it'll be twice as good. So, that's my advice to anybody out there. And
Beautiful because that's beautiful because we are at the end. We're over the 45-minute mark, so
oh
we
wait,
need to
before
say
before we go,
goodbye.
hold on, but we did
Yeah, yeah.
promise in our last tease to show this. This is I just want to show this
Oh
technology,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
or should I say
Animation.
yeah, well, it's motion comics, and this is called Red Sonja, the Queen of Plagues. I'm trying to get it on full screen here. It's not
Cooperating.
yeah, it's not cooperating with me. But here you can see it here. So this is something called motion comics, and you see all these little studios. So there's probably a
Yeah,
printed
pick it up.
comic.
Pick it. Yeah, go. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, hold it right there.
So it's a printed comic, that they just come out with, and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah,
somebody
yeah.
takes it and they scan it and they're cutting it all apart in Photoshop. I don't know what they're using, and it's very limited motion. This isn't the manga thing though. Manga was always kind of like a limited animation, that they did on the cheap, where like things are moving and things are zooming in and everything. But this is like just taking the 2D elements and making them like a piece that rotates or a piece that moves. I don't love this. Um, you
Yeah,
know, even if you hear some of the voices, right? I'm not really convinced this is like an army of horse riders, and
yeah,
all that. But it's something, and this is like on the cheap, animated technology. Maybe you get lost in the story after a minute. Maybe if you just suspend disbelief about the distraction about the format. But anyway, that's now on Blu-ray and DVD, and I don't see Marvel mentioned here anywhere. You know,
Marvel doesn't own the rights to Sonya.
right? Marvel, right? They lost the rights to the Robert E. Howard stuff. So so there you go, and that was I saw that reviewed. If people are interested, there's a guy reviewing that on YouTube, where he goes over every frame and every page and everything. But the motion comic thing, it's another interesting stepping stone on the way to making fully animated 2D comics. So I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that we didn't disappoint our viewers from last time when we mentioned that.
No.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Jake. Once again, it was a
Yeah,
good
man.
time.
So we'll
Woo.
we'll we'll talk again next Sunday,
Yep.
and in the meantime, happy comic making.
That's
Uh,
right. Let's keep making them.
yeah, may all your comics be made nicely. I don't know what I'm saying.
We're working on our intros and outros. So so it'll come probably around episode 57. That's my prediction. But I think we should call ourselves the Turbo Knots. And anybody who becomes a super fan should also call themselves a Turbo Knot. So we'll see how that holds and sticks. But
I'm
with
all
that
for.
being said,
Yep.
thank you. And if you made it this far in the episode and you're listening to us and you've subscribed and all that good jazz, we're going to be hammering forward on this comic. So, and sharing a lot. And we would love to hear from you as well. So thanks again. And yes, we'll see you next week. See
Yeah.
ya.
Be cool, everybody. Later.